Excited for everyone to join this session on incentives. As he said, I'm Ron Klein, head of product at Domuso. If you're unfamiliar with Domuso, we're primarily a resident payments platform in the multifamily space, but we are now dipping our toes into rewards, and it's part of the reason why I'm here to talk to you all today. A little bit more on me. I actually started my career off in finance, working on customer lifetime value and incentives and all that good stuff, so uniquely positioned to talk about it here. Most of my career, though, has been in technology, and I actually spent a good amount of time at Groupon, rolling out a new product that you may have heard of called Groupon Plus. It was a card-linked offer program. Scan your credit card at restaurants, you get cash back, directly to your card statement. A lot of my time there was spent on researching, loyalty programs and how we could get more buy-in to that program. As for this session specifically, we're gonna try to meet residents where they are, and specifically with the intent to improve efficiency at a lot of multifamily companies. If we understand resident behaviors, perhaps we can leverage them to unlock new revenue opportunities or reduce costs, help our budgets in the long term. Before I actually jump in, I do want to say there are a lot of bad rewards programs out there. Not necessarily in the multifamily space, but you guys have probably all seen them, right? It's something that's asking you to do something that you'd never do, or asking you to do something 30 times before you get a reward that's not even worth it at the end of the day. The focus here should be on win-win rewards programs, right? Something that's not only good for you and your company, but also good for the resident, right? So it's incentivizing the right behaviors. It's the behaviors that you all want. So I'll start off with a little more doom and gloom. This is my favorite. Concessions are on the rise. So we're at a 2-year high from data I've seen. 30% of new units signed have some sort of concession signed to it. And meanwhile, rent costs are pretty stagnant. You can see figures in a variety of different places. Most of what I've seen is basically down 1.5% year over year. So the idea there is all that concession spend we're doing on non-increasing rents, how much waste is really in that number, right? And so we'll unpack that a little bit. Operational costs, just like all costs across the nation, are on the rise. We expect inflation to cool. That's kind of the general consensus in the market right now, and that Fed rate cuts are on the rise. But borrowing is really high, and probably those benefits won't kick in, for at least another year. And then lastly, staffing's always an issue. Can I hire and retain the right people? Do I need to make cuts? So what do we do in a situation as bleak as I've just outlined? Well, we can shift our focus away from revenue growth, just purely revenue growth, and towards portfolio performance, right? So if rents are stagnant and we're not really expanding, what can we do to actually optimize the performance of the assets we already have on hand? There's a lot you can do, and I'm sure there's a lot more not on this list that you guys could reference, but I'm gonna focus on 4 in this session. And you may see a few of these and say, my property's desperate for all 4, or you may really just have 1 or 2, but there's optimization that can be done across all of these levels. And they are payment centralization, pushing people online, incentives, and then really how that incentive program structures within your core business. My favorite topic, payment centralization. So exciting. It actually is. So the general idea here is, can we consolidate from several different areas, to one core payment solution that's gonna solve all of my problems all in one place? And really, this is most useful for a lot of big portfolio groups who maybe have several different property management systems, they have multiple supplier vendors, and they really just need to organize things into one payment provider. And there's a myriad of benefits here. Obviously, you're not training your team on a wide variety of tools, right? So there's a lot more focus in how your actual work process runs. And then, if you have delinquencies, you're not chasing them across multiple systems or struggling to understand, where are returns happening, where are disputes happening, things like that. So one core place where you can do a lot of that. And then, my favorite is it's just cheaper generally. So obviously that's a pretty good benefit. Next is the push online that I mentioned. I've honestly not really seen too many other industries as reluctant to go online than multifamily. It kind of mirrors healthcare a bit in the past. I think healthcare's got a lot better, and I think multifamily's got a lot better as well. But we could cite a ton of really good examples. I think this one specifically with a client of ours in Southern California, I think they have about 15,000 units. They actually inherited a Domuso property that was 100% online. Every resident was paying with an online source. And they were trying to understand why. And ultimately what came out is an easy-to-use portal that residents can log into and understand, a wide variety of payment options, and really education, not only for the resident, but for your property teams. And so we actually took them, the entire portfolio on, and they're up to 80% digital adoption now. So 80%, that's great. It's not all the way there. And then just in general, like why, right? Like if you're struggling to understand, like if people are paying online, what are the benefits I'm getting here? Without paper checks, which I know seems crazy in this world, you're gonna have faster cash because you're basically getting that transaction process right then and there when they pay in the app. And then you're really just nullifying, in a large sense, returns and fraud. So a ton of benefits. Again, 80-90% is great. So I'm efficient, right? I've centralized my payments, or I feel comfortable where I'm at. I'm at 80 to 90% adoption. Where do we go from here, right? How do we extend that? And that's where incentives come in. So, quote from Starbucks here, "We know from our experience that when customers join our rewards program, their total spend with Starbucks increases meaningfully." Now, obviously, it's not a direct comparison because I don't think anyone's probably measured on how much my residents are spending. I mean, rents are important, right? But you're not trying to grow that number day to day, right? But there are a lot of interesting comparisons. So, the Starbucks app, I used it this morning. I went down and I got my coffee and my wrap. Originally, when it rolled out, it was revolutionary, right? And it's like, why wouldn't everybody use it? You can order ahead of time, have your food and your coffee right there on the counter for you to pick it up. But actually, adoption didn't really spread until their rewards program, which is pretty much part of our culture now, was really ingrained. And with that, they've honestly, and you've seen it across the board, been able to increase prices while getting people to buy more coffees more often. It's because of the value that's perceived in that rewards program. We feel that can be, the same exact thing can be done in multifamily. Paying your rent online is the most convenient way to do it, yet people still will not do it. And so how do we break those ties? And one of the ways you can do it is with the rewards program. But wait, there's more. Not just pushing people online. So once you have them in the app, one of the biggest pieces is feedback, right? So we're not rewarding positive feedback, right? We're not saying, hey, if you give us a good review, like we're gonna give you some points in this rewards program. But what we are doing is getting feedback from the people who are least likely to engage, right? Who are you hearing from today? You're hearing from the loudest on the negative and the loudest on the positive. We want to get that middle. We want to get a further balance on who's providing that feedback, just so you can get an overall better picture. Renewals and referrals, obviously the most obvious, right? We want our people to sign back. We want to increase occupancy, and we want to save on turnover costs. And specifically with referrals, I think that a referrals program is begging to be put online, right? We're doing this in our offices a lot of the time. And strictly when a resident has someone who is a potential referral, they often don't marry the idea of them living at that property with the idea that they could get some type of reward out of it. But you put that digital, it's a higher retail space for them, or retail space for them to say, oh, hey, I can actually get points, or I can get rewards, cash for referring, my friend. Payment behaviors, obviously pushing online is great, but not only can we do that, we can move payments up, right? So you start rewarding people paying earlier. You're not waiting till the last day for payments. And then, if you're strictly looking to get people on auto pay because you want that reliable cash flow, you can incentivize that too. The last point I'll make on this slide is on concessions, because I brought this up at the beginning. And when I talk to a lot of people, they say, okay, great, rewards is nice, but how am I going to pay for it, right? You're just increasing my costs. But what we need to do is flip that on its head, right? There is a ton of inefficient concession spend in the market today. Like I said, 30% of new units have a concession tied to it. That has a ton of waste. So the idea here is, how do we reward renewals and how do we reward the right behavior, but not go so far, right? Taking it back to the Starbucks example, there's perceived value in these rewards, right? Hey, I'm in this rewards program. I've been on my property for 4 years. It's great because I get to roll over rewards every year, right? And it reduces my costs. I'll close on this. Obviously, payments and rewards is a powerful tool. I mean, we're doing it. Obviously, we think it makes a ton of sense. Not only, though, are there those payment behaviors that we're kind of hounding on, right? Like get people to pay early, get them to pay on time, get them to pay with auto pay. But it's also putting it in the space where they're constantly going back to every month. Every month I go into my app and I pay my rent. Okay, now I'm going to leave feedback for the property. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do that, right? So it's hitting them at the exact spot we know they're going to be month over month. On the next slide, I'll actually take you through a little bit of the value. We have this ROI calculator that kind of starts talking through what the value is to a program like this. And it'll kind of show you, bringing back to the first slide, like, what does efficiency actually mean in the grand scheme of things? So in this example, we have a portfolio of 10,000 units, average rent, what do we put in here, $1,600. They are using payments and rewards, and with that, we've seen in the market around a 15% bump in digital payments. And even if we just assume a 2% change in renewals and a 2% change in the reduction in vacancies, between the added revenue and the savings on costs, it's about $500,000. So a ton of value there. We're really excited for the pairing. If you're interested, obviously, my email's on the screen. Please feel free to reach out. But I think we do have a little bit of time for questions. So does anyone have any questions?